It's 9:00. The kids are in bed.
Oh, all right.
And the wives are fed. No, I told you I had a really good intro for tonight, and
Okay.
I do not.
Oh,
I was so I really did try to think of something really good for tonight, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pare-dox podcast with better lighting
yeah, and hopefully better sound.
and hopefully better sound.
Yeah.
I am your host Gabe, sitting here with Andrew, and we are two dads, one cup.
Oh, come on. That's one swear jar. There we
One
go.
swear
Yeah.
jar. We have our swear jar from last time. I can't seem to get us on YouTube, but once we do, we will have.
So bear with us, guys.
Yeah,
all our viewers already. Bear with us.
Yeah, all of them.
Hey, I promise we'll get some content soon.
Yes. I think we're doing everything backwards. Literally everything backwards. Like we're recording first,
No.
and then we're doing the YouTube channel, and then I don't even know how we're going to put this out in a podcasting form.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, you know.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We're flying by the seat of our pants
There you
here.
go.
I don't even. So, anyways, welcome to the Pare-dox podcast. Like I said, I'm Gabe. That's Andrew. We are two Orthodox Christians, two dads, trying to make our way through this crazy world. And along the way, we're going to talk about parenting. We're going to talk about being Christians, being Orthodox Christians. So many other things that we're going to talk about. I want to talk about, and we'll get to our topics tonight. I have topics.
Okay.
But first of all, Andrew, hit him up with a disclaimer.
So we are just two Orthodox laymen in the church. Please don't take anything that we say as anything definite, unless I'm quoting or Gabe's quoting a father directly.
Correct.
And even then, we got to make sure it's in the right context. If there's anything that scandalizes or upsets you, we're sorry. Please let us know. And then of course, if we say anything, like if we happen to like give advice or something like that, and it's something you're thinking about implementing in your life in a serious way, I double check with your spiritual father or parish priest or someone, because we're kind of just too, like I have no theological training and
I have zero.
Yeah. So
I think you said some things last week that I think I've been ruminating on all week, and I'm like, man, Andrew's so much more like Orthodox than me. But I think that's a problem because I always compare to other people. I'm always like,
sure.
Oh, I wish I was more pious like X person or X person. Or I do the opposite and I scoff at them and I go,
Yeah.
oh, George, there's no George in our church.
No George, yeah.
George's wannabe pious guy,
Sure.
like that, just judgmental stuff. But
You know what drives me the most crazy? Is Father and I have talked about this before. Our spiritual father, Father Turbo.
Yeah.
I've talked about this with him before. Of people who come in and there's like a spirit behind it. But like when people come in, because when you first walk in the nave, the first thing you're supposed to do is go venerate icons or go kiss icons. And so some people come in and like they'll cross themselves like really, really slowly and like super like they're just like yes the entire time. And it's like there's a spirit behind it because I don't mind piety. I like piety. I like seeing people being reverent towards holy things, but there's like a spirit behind this that I'm like, I mean, who's this for? That's when I kind of keep coming back to. It seems a little like
look at me, like the super slow,
like Господи помилуй, just like and like like when they talk, like they tend to like. I don't know. They'll be, oh, I'm a worm. Oh, I'm a sinner. I don't deserve any of that kind of stuff. And like,
we can get into that, man.
All that is true without a doubt. But like, there's like an authentic way of saying that.
Sure.
Like, there's an authentic way of saying like, yeah, but I mean, I'm sinful. Yeah. Like I'm sinful. I'm a fallen, broken thing. Right. But it's just like, oh, I'm not fit to. Oh, you're much better than I am.
Yes.
Not like what you were saying just a second ago, but like, there's because I get this feeling that if a push ever came to shove and I said something like kind of insulting, and I've experienced this before with a person, I'm not really in contact with them anymore,
We'll put it on our Patreon.
Yeah, there you go. This is the third problem with the third person that in the Orthodox Church that we have to talk about. But like, like basically they did something inappropriate, and not inappropriate like in a bad way, but they did something kind of like quote unquote wrong.
Right.
You know, in the church they did something wrong, and I like they did it right in front of me, so I kind of corrected them just a little bit. In the context of what I'm talking about, it wasn't like I wasn't like, hey, by the way, like tap on the shoulder. I was like, they did something, and it was clearly kind of like, oh, okay. And
they walked behind the altar through the royal doors.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, hello, Father.
They were just like wiping the Cheeto dust as they were like kissing icons and stuff. No, but like they did something wrong, and this is a person that does the whole like crossing, and like I could tell it like
offended him.
It really offended him. It like really bothered them, and it's like, you know, maybe I'm out of line for correcting you. Let's not rule it out. But at the same time, like you could receive a correction, and the very first thing you did is like bristle your hair at me,
right.
And like. It's not even like I'm a priest to correct you. It's just like, hey, objectively, the thing you're doing is wrong.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But then they were like right back at me, like, how dare you correct me? You know, like,
right.
So all that piety, all that humility, it
goes out the window when it's challenged in a real authentic way of like saying like, hey, that I don't believe that was correct. And then how dare you? And it's so it's
like
pride.
It's
pride.
And then who's this really for type of thing. And like it's like that time that like you were holding the cloth for communion, and like a lady walked up, and you're like, hold on, I don't know who you are. Like you're like, hold on, Father, like I don't know who this. And she's like, I've been Orthodox for 20 years or something like that.
Denny's mom.
Oh, that was Denny's mom.
Denny's mom.
Well, I'm sorry, Denny. Like I didn't mean to do a bad impersonation.
No. She said, as far as I knew, she wasn't Orthodox, and I said, no, Father, she's not Orthodox. And she goes, you know, only God can judge me. She hadn't been to an Orthodox church, and anyways. Sure. She said, only God can judge me. Basically, how dare you? And I was mortified because she really was Orthodox.
Sure, but I think that's still the right call to make. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
We are, and we're like we just launched right into it.
Yeah, that's the Andrew
Before
Funk
we go,
experience. That's all I can say.
That's what we should change the name of the podcast to. The Andrew Funk experience.
When I go canoeing, I don't even have time for safety jackets or anything. I forget the oars. I'm just like people are still pulling up and getting ready, and I'm already halfway down the river.
Like, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
So don't forget to like and subscribe down at the bottom, because this now I'm a YouTuber, kind of. I have that real estate YouTube channel. So don't forget to like and subscribe down below.
Or don't. That's fine.
Or don't. Also leave comments during our chat, and I think eventually we're going to go live.
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
I think once we get everything going, we're going to do this live every Tuesday night. Hopefully, God willing.
Yeah.
And also welcome to any non-Orthodox Christians that are joining us.
Absolutely.
Who want to chuckle and want to laugh about parenting, and then also want to know more about the Orthodox Church.
Sure.
We are terrible guides in that fashion.
I was going to say don't do that.
But, definitely if you're interested, you can email us at Pare-dox podcast1@gmail.com. You can email us questions, comments, anything like that, or we can point you in the right direction of a spiritual person.
You somewhere else.
Point you somewhere else, because this isn't the place for you.
This is not the place.
But it's a place to laugh, and it's a place to have fun. I wanted to talk about Kanye West the entire time.
Come on.
No,
I thought you were serious for a second.
I want to talk about Balenciaga, the fashion thing, and I want to talk about Elon Musk.
Oh no!
I want to talk about all the hot button issues. I don't want to talk about parenting. Parenting's boring.
Okay. Yeah.
There's not enough hot takes on podcasts about all of these subjects.
No, there's not. There's a real gap in the market.
There is.
So, I mean, who knows really what those guys are up to at this point?
I haven't heard anything about Kanye recently. I'm kind of wondering where he's at. What happened?
Yeah.
Why was he dressed like the Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe?
That's between him and God. That's between him and God. And Alex Jones.
He was wearing that.
Oh, I know. I've seen it.
Wow. Anyways, I don't want to talk about any of that. I'm hoping that this is a Kanye-free zone for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I mean...
Because, what do we...
What?
I mean, he's a dad, but we're not going to talk about him being a parent. We don't know anything about his parenting.
No, I mean, he's pro-life, and that's cool. I can get behind that. So, I mean, in that regard, it's like...
Is that how we're judging people now? We're like, all right, you're pro-life, you're all right.
I mean, it's definitely a check in the favor column. But,
Sure.
I mean, that doesn't mean you're automatically a good person if you are pro-life, so...
Definitely not, because Trump is pro-life.
As far as we know. I mean...
Yeah, is he?
I mean, I'm just saying... I don't know what the vibe of the podcast we're trying to maintain, so I'll just...
all I'm trying to maintain is a sense of this. We don't talk about anything before we...
Well, what's really the topic?
No, I really don't have a topic.
Okay.
I mean, there's things that usually when I walk into this, I just go, you know what? We'll talk like this. We'll riff.
Sure.
And just like we do in person. And
Sure.
then, dad stuff is bound to come up because that's what we do the
Yeah.
majority of our life. We work and we dad.
I was talking to my wife right before I headed over, and she was like...
We work and we dad. I like that.
Yeah, we work and we dad. I was talking to my wife on the way before I came over here, and I was like, what did I say? I said something along the lines of like, I can't remember, but somehow it came up. Like she was like, "Oh, you like talking about the kids?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, it's like my favorite thing to talk about." She's like, "I guess I hadn't really thought about that before." And I was like, because like I've heard of people who go on dates with like their spouse or something like that, and they're like, no talking about the kids the entire time. Like that's a rule. And it's like on our one of our first dates that my wife and I went out on after we had our first daughter, we like talked about her, and I was like, I have no problem with this. Like I like talking about her.
That doesn't make sense to me.
It's not something... someone would have to put it in some context that I have to understand.
Sure.
That it's like maybe there's some kind of a boundary thing, or maybe there needs to like be a certain proper order in the household, and there needs to be time where like the husband and wife only focus on each other, and I'm sure that that's all true.
Absolutely.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the date has to be like a kid... the date conversation has to be like kid-free. I don't agree with that. But again, prove me wrong. I have no idea. I'm really just... flying by the seat of my pants, but
I mean, but they're your life, right? So like when you go out with your wife, and especially when you have your first kid, okay, maybe I can understand if like your father turbo 8 kids deep. It's like,
sure,
good night almighty. Can we just like talk about anything other than, kid stuff? Because you're just inundated.
Yeah.
When you have one, it's new, it's exciting. When you have two, it's like... things, but there's such a big part of our lives that it's hard. I send crappy videos to my wife all the time of our daughter doing stuff.
Nothing. Just nothing.
Just
sitting there, just like looking.
Like this week, she was doing so. Obviously we've gone through the whole like. There's like the giggle. You see the first giggle, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
She giggled.
Yeah. For real.
And then it's a chuckle. And then yesterday it was full on
belly laughing. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
and it
good.
was
it's pure and it's wonderful.
Dude,
yeah.
It was the cutest thing I've ever seen. She was full on like a little tiny angel.
Sure.
Just laughing.
Oh yeah.
And bath time, Paige was pouring water on her. And I was just like, it is a miracle day today here in the Miller household. She didn't laugh that much today. But but I'm like living for these moments. And I was thinking today, I was like, what if, like, not what if, but I'm like, I can't imagine my daughter being big. You know what I mean? I'm like, one day she's going to be a little person running around my house screaming or asking why the sky is blue.
She'll have like her own taste in music.
Right. No, she won't.
Well.
No, she won't. She has my taste or nothing.
The cool thing about it is, generally speaking, there's not too much music I've played for my daughter that she does not like.
What was she jamming out to last time we were playing D&D?
Oh, I don't know.
Like the Beastie Boys. Ooh, that's a whole other subject.
Yeah, I'll talk about the Beastie Boys all night long. I don't care. I love the Beastie Boys.
But I think maybe it was metal. It was a metal song that she was like.
She likes Ruben does like metal a lot. Sometimes when he was little, he would get upset when a song didn't have drums. So we'd have to play something with drums. I remember there were times where I would play him like Meshuggah. I remember one time specifically I played him. There's a thrash band. I don't know if you listened to them. The Vector.
I've never heard of them.
They're incredible. But their album Outer Isolation is absolutely incredible. It's like one of the best thrash albums I've ever heard. It's all like space themed and everything, but it's like it's really really it's if you like Power Trip and what is the other one that replaced Power Trip?
Municipal.
No. They're new. High Command. If you
that's right. Because the lead singer of Power Trip died, right?
Yeah. So then I think either they broke up or they're on hiatus. I don't know which, but High Command. Anyway, I played it for him specifically driving through a park here in Kansas City, and he was out like right away. I was like, oh, he wanted to jam out to something, but like my daughter does not like death metal. Like she doesn't like super heavy stuff like that, but she can get down on some like hardcore. Like it seems like D beat. I don't know. She's just like maybe
she's got good taste.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but no, almost everything that I've played for her, she ends up liking at some point. Yeah,
I hope that's the case because, I mean, obviously, I think I have great taste in music. Obviously, because I listen to it. You know.
Sure.
And I really hope that she likes country more than my wife. Here's my goal. I want me and my wife, or me and my daughter, to drive my wife crazy by listening to country music. I mean, and a lot of it.
The thing is you have like this like control over what they get exposed to, and I remember like one of the first times it clicked for my daughter, and I actually started to have like influence on her, and it's pretty early, you know. I mean, talking is like probably within the first year they start responding to stuff.
Sure. So
just start playing stuff for them. I remember like in our old house, the vinyl player was like right next to the dinner table, so a lot of times we'd sit and listen to a vinyl, and I had the Smiths on.
Nice.
And my daughter was just staring at the speaker, and she was just like staring at it like that, and I was just like, oh, she's like really connecting with it. She's like, what is I like
whatever's
this.
happening right now. I'm into.
Yeah, 100%. So
my daughter had trouble pooping the other day, so we played Dragula for her, and she pooped.
Oh, well.
Thank you, Rob Zombie.
Man, oh man.
I mean, it was because Paige loves to karaoke that song. We're not Rob Zombie fans, but we were just goofing around, and she was
no judgment.
And she was like pumping her legs. Oh, we'll get into all my bad musical taste eventually.
Sure.
And she was like pumping her legs, and then she was like, "Oh my gosh, she pooped. She pooped a Dragula."
Rob Zombie, thank you for helping my daughter poop.
You know, maybe I'll send him a Christmas basket.
There you go. What's the worst band that you like?
Currently.
Yeah.
Or that I still listen to from the past that...
Either or.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Ugh, that's bad. Like that one album with the Takedown, is that what it's called? The really, really big one.
I see. Okay, so let me explain.
Right.
So I need to explain. Right. I loved the first album, which everyone thinks is the one with the kill on it. That's not the first
one
album.
With the kids sitting on the front.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That album is incredible. Okay. I still think that album is incredible. Second album is okay. Everything after that is what I'm talking about. Everything after that is trash.
Yeah.
They became some weird pop band, and he's a cult leader, and he's apparently a groomer. I don't know. Don't know the guy personally, but
I totally get those vibes from him though.
You 100%.
Like someone made a joke. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like, "You would believe every awful story you heard about him." I'd be like, "Yes, I would absolutely believe."
He sounds like he sounds like a nightmare individual. And actually, one of my friends, her boyfriend went on tour, or knows a guy. He's a guitar tech.
Okay.
Knows a guy that went on tour 30 Seconds to Mars for a couple of years, and he said it was great because he got to see the world. But he goes, "Those guys are a bunch of turds."
Yeah, I imagine.
I'm saying turds because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I already need to put money in the swear jar from last week. But what about you? What's your like cringe band other than Beastie Boys? Oh.
No, you just don't know what you're talking about. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know. See, the thing is for me, and we don't have to get into this whole thing right now, although I guess why not? I don't really care so much about that stuff anymore. Like, I am like, because I was so like against like emotionally, like quote unquote, like emotionally manipulative. Yeah, I mean, I'm against me, but I was so like against like corporate like polished music for a long time that now like I guess I don't care.
I don't either.
And as long as it's good, So like there's plenty of like quote unquote bad music I'll rock out to, like Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. Like that song is like incredible. It's like
It's a good song.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a good song.
I can't think of many people, many musical artists. I can actually now think of a large amount of musical artists I would not go see live.
Sure.
But like a lot of those stereotypically like bad bands, like I want to say like Nickelback or Aaron Lewis or like Puddle of Mud or whatever. Like if someone were paying for my ticket, I'd go see them. Like I would have no problem going to see them. Like I'd go see Hinder. It'd be like whatever. Hinder. If they did that Lips of an Angel song in like the summer of like 2000, I think you would.
I'd probably recognize it if I heard it because I mean I'm pretty.
It's like the summer of like 2006 or 7 or something. It was all
man.
over the
2006,
place.
You said?
Yeah. It was all over.
I lived at a bar.
Yeah, I mean, you heard it. I know you have.
Yeah,
It's like
I'm
a
sure.
song about a dude who's cheating on his girlfriend with another girlfriend or something like that. I don't know.
I was listening to a lot of Ryan Adams and getting really drunk. Really drunk.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been.
Which I still repent of.
Oh, sure.
To this day.
That's fair.
So, anyways, I'm sorry. So Iris. But what's like a band that you're like...
Three Doors Down.
That's good.
I can get into Three Doors
Okay.
Down. They're just a solid rock band. I mean, no, they're not like. I mean, I don't know if they are winning awards.
I thought you. I mean, as long as it's like not like. Well, I was into Papa Roach at one time. I don't listen to them anymore.
I actually Papa Roach and Disturbed were two.
Oh, Disturbed is so bad.
I'm proud to say I never got into. I was just like kind of instantly heard that and I was like,
You're like, done.
I'm not into this.
Done.
Yeah, this is kind of not cool.
Yeah.
And
sounds really good.
Avenged Sevenfold is another band I never got into either.
They suck.
So
They're really bad. If I want to listen to bad thrash, I could find 1,000 other bands.
And that's the thing is it's just like they don't do anything especially like noteworthy.
They don't.
I mean, they have some sick riffs, but like if you play in a metal band, you're gonna have sick riffs.
Right.
Like there's always gonna be some part of like your music that's gonna be somewhat sweet. Like because you're surrounded with that energy, like you're gonna find a way to make a sweet riff. Like the worst
tasty riff.
Yeah, a delectable riff. But like I can't think of many metal bands that like they don't have at least like one kind of like poppin' riff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
right.
Even Lamb of God, who
dude, they have some sick riffs. Dude.
They have some sick. I don't like that band at all.
No, I don't like his
good.
vocals, man. His vocals drive me crazy.
I don't like his vocals. I think they're pretty generic, like melodic metalcore band. Man. But he's got some riffs. He can come up with some stuff.
They got some sick, like As I Lay Dying. We've talked about As I Lay Dying before. Those are some tasty licks.
There are some tasty licks, without a doubt. Like I wish that band had.
The guy didn't try and kill his wife or whatever?
The guy didn't try and kill his wife, and from what I understand, I don't really want to like slander him too much or anything, so...
he had it... I mean, to be fair...
No, the killing the wife thing, I was about to continue that thought, and I was like, I'm going to stop there, because I don't really know much about what's happening with that band anymore.
Right.
But what I can say is that all that like that really generic like mid 2010s like metalcore stuff, there's some really, really great stuff in there without a doubt. Like I actually was like, man, I kind of wish I could start like a mid 2000s Christian metalcore band, and I'd be right there. The name of it was like Remembering the Ashes of Tomorrow's Yesterday or something like because it was always some like super dumb name.
Yeah. That borrows from Remembering Never, From Autumn to Ashes.
It's everything. Yeah. It's like if an AI came up with like a 2005 like Christian metalcore band. And I don't know if you never went to Cornerstone, did you? No. The Christian Music Festival in Illinois. Yeah, during the last couple of years, like metalcore really took over that festival, which stinks because I'm pretty sure that's what killed it. Because suddenly you couldn't go to anywhere without hearing like some generic breakdown with like this guy going, or no, just like dun 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 dun, and like that's the whole breakdown. Right. It's like there's nothing really like terribly cool or clever about it, but everyone will always get on stage and they play some riff and the singer will be like, "What's up, everyone?" Like we are, and then whatever, from yesterday's ashes from tomorrow's yesterday's never. But But
none of those bands are Christian anymore.
no, okay, a couple of them are. And like I don't think Haste the Day is still around,
No,
but they
I think-
stay Christian to the end.
Okay. I think
So
they
did
just came out with another album.
really.
Where they reunite. Furnace Fest has been bringing people together.
So
and
here's
they're
the
making
cool
records.
thing about what Haste the Day did.
Uh-huh.
This is the cool thing, and I know this is a very exclusionary conversation, and I'm sorry, but this.
Jason Copeland has checked out like literally 30 minutes.
Oh
ago.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't think I think that dude kind of just checks out whenever I talk anyway. I mean, he's just like, yeah, he's gonna talk about comic books or superheroes or something. I just don't care. But Haste the Day reunited with both singers. And when they perform live, the old singer does the old stuff and the new singer does the new stuff. Then that's I was like, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And I don't know of another band that's done that. I'm sure someone has, but I don't know of someone else who has. I mean, I can't think of another band that has done that. So, anyway, so you have a lot of influence over your kids' taste in music, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I hope I do. I hope
Yeah.
I do because I love. I just music has always been such a big part of my life. I mean, it was my God for a very, very, very
Sure.
long time. You know,
Sure.
and I hope that she just like I don't know. I grew up, and this is actually going to dovetail into something I wanted to talk to you about concerning media. So yeah, I grew up. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. I'm older than you, obviously.
Sure.
We didn't have a TV till I was like 5 or 6, right?
Okay.
So it was always breakfast with the Beatles on Sunday mornings. Like it was a radio show. We'd listen to
Okay.
the Beatles. My dad was really into music. My dad is the most tone deaf, out of touch, out of tune. Like, I mean, he's singing a song and it's like, it's here and he's like three or four lines
He's way
back.
over. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he dances like a pelican stepping on hot coals. I mean, I can't dance either.
Sure.
But I've at least got rhythm.
Sure.
Like I was in bands my entire life or whatever. So music was such a huge part of us growing up. And TV didn't come into the picture until later. So speaking of TV, so I feel like kind of like the problem sometimes I feel, and this is me, it's not the problem. I was about to say the problem with orthodoxy. The problem with me is sometimes I feel like this pressure to be more orthodox, right?
Okay.
So like, for instance, I was, having a rough day with my daughter and I just needed some time to go make some food.
Okay.
So I turned on Netflix and a kid's show.
Sure.
And I just put her, she's 4 months old.
Sure.
I put her in her little thing and it was some elf show where the elves were dancing around and she was just like,
Yeah.
ah!
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt horrible.
Yeah. Sure.
I was like, oh God, here we go. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to get her addicted. My biggest fear is is me needing that time and getting her addicted to screens.
Sure.
Because I see it so often with kids that are like, 3 years old and they have their little
Yeah.
everyone's got their own little iPad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy, but I just needed a minute. And she
Sure.
will not let me put her down.
Yeah. That's a real thing.
So, I felt I felt like all my other Orthodox friends and brethren and even are all
Yeah.
how dare you, Gabe?
Yeah, there's definitely like, so I have to say this right off the bat. Like we did that too with Louise to a degree. Pretty early on, someone gave us like little Einsteins, and like it's like a TV show or whatever that was supposed to like make your baby smarter, just the way it was like laid out or whatever. And then I'm like, well, now I'm like, well, first off, that's sorcery. I'm not into that.
Right.
So, but I remember like watching it with her because like Louise was very difficult. Little Louise Zenia was very difficult. So we thought maybe TV might be a break. And I understand that. That's definitely like, that's what I would call, with all the love and sincerity in the world, a first kid problem. And what I mean by that is like, that is something that you work out with your first kid. Unfortunately, like a lot of our first kids, like bear the brunt of our iniquities. Like
Right.
they're kind of the one that break us in, and by extension, like it's a little bit rougher. By the time you get to the second kid, things are a little bit easier because you're already kind of prepared to make sacrifices, stuff like that. By the time the third kid comes around, extraordinarily difficult without a doubt. But at that time, you've got the rhythm down. You know you're not going to watch TV. You know that, like, you're not going to be able to get any me time. You're lucky to catch, like, 45 minutes to an hour at the end of the day to kind of, like, relax and do what you want to do, blah, blah, blah. But, like, there's definite, like, writings by the fathers. There's definitely, like, some... there's definitely some, like, precedent for people talking about this within the church that, like, yeah... For the first 7 years, the soul is really making its foundation. Like it's like the concrete's being poured, and like a lot of times, we can leave air pockets in there, you know, because just like little things, you know, little iniquities, like we're setting them up for having problems later on. Now, all that being said, you know, like, this is what I wanted to say. My wife and I eventually took a hard stance against screen time. And it's not that what you did was necessarily like unforgivable or like not even something that I haven't done myself, because I certainly have. But what I will say is I want to praise my wife here because she does not allow the kids to have any screen time. Like really, they really don't watch it at all. And she suffers for it. Like she's in a position where she can suffer for it because she doesn't have work. Like her life is the home, you know?
Right.
So if things are going bad, it reflects only on pressures from home. You know what I mean? It's not reflecting on a business or something like that.
Right.
So when my wife is refusing at 3 o'clock, the kids are tired, everyone's probably hungry and cranky. It's just that time of day where it'd be very easy for her to flip on a show and let the kids watch it. She doesn't. And I'm not saying that necessarily that's what everyone needs to do all the time.
Sure.
But what I will say is, like, I think it's going to be a little bit of a jewel in her crown. Sure. Like when she gets to heaven. But when Louise was little, I don't want to make it seem like I'm like putting you on blast, because that's not what I'm trying to do. Okay.
No,
that's not what I'm trying to do.
No.
We've tussled with this for about 4 years.
Sure.
Of what is the appropriate thing to do, because you know, and I'll stop here. I don't want to keep going on because this is something I could talk about. But like even like comic books, like my wife, I would give my kids comic books, like from my collection or whatever, and be like, yeah, you can read this. This is yours now. That's fine. My wife would go through it and be like, you are kind of inoculated to some of this stuff, but it's pretty scary. Like there's some scary stuff in here that you probably don't think is scary. I'm like, oh, come on. It's, like one was a Wonder Woman comic, but there was like, it was, of course I can't remember his, Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chang, their run, and there's like a part where they deal with like an undead spirit, or like a spirit of like a little dead girl or something like that. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Like she is kind of scary looking. So, St. Paisio says that kids are like carbon paper, that every single thing.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah. So, I think it's with discernment. The other thing that could potentially go wrong is like the kid who doesn't eat sugar and goes to a birthday party and has cake for like the first time and flips out.
Right.
You know, like... So what happens the first time my daughter goes to a friend's house and they have TV on or something like that, and she just sits there and binge watches it for like 7-8 hours. She's like, why did you not let us have this?
Right.
So there's like a happy medium in there, you know, somewhere. But
that's what I used to do with sugary cereals. My parents never fed me sugary cereals, and then I would go over to my friend's house
and just mow down.
Dude, Cocoa Puffs all effing day.
Absolutely.
Like I was just like, yeah, and then I'd come home and it was like a vacation, and I knew I couldn't have that,
sure,
you know, at the house or whatever. But I mean, I don't think it's so. The excuse I made was like my wife. Like I was like, my wife watched a lot of TV, and she turned out fine.
Yeah, your wife's a lovely person.
You know. And it's not like I want to establish that just because my wife turned out good. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's hard not to have those thoughts of like justifying what you're doing at the time, because, you know, this, I mean, we're adoptees.
You adopt
Adopters.
Yeah,
And
'cause I think
our
you'd be
daughter's
an
an adoptee.
Yeah, your daughter's an adoptee.
So this might be our only child because
Sure.
I mean it's super costly to adopt a kid, and I'm
You
not
got
getting
like another 40,000.
No, I don't. You know what? I don't. Unless somebody out there wants to buy a house, comment
There you
below.
go. There you go.
Let me sell you a house. So I mean, you know, it may be I don't know what God has in store, but I'm just saying, like,
Sure.
it's different for us, and you know, and that brings me to, I mean, there is some pressure being Orthodox because you want everything to be right
Sure.
and proper,
Sure.
even when it comes down to the unseen pressure
Yes.
of me and my wife not being able to have children.
Okay.
And then every Orthodox person is literally squirting out 1,000 babies.
For real.
And they're like, and then you're kind of, just by proxy, you feel like an odd man out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's comments of like, oh, what if the miracle happens? And all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's been 8 years.
Yeah. That never even crossed my mind. I was like, no, it's like your role is just elsewhere. It's just like your role is just not to have biological kids. Or it is. I have no idea.
Right.
But that's just what I always thought. It was just like, yeah, it's just not their role. Like those that you think of like, this is all stuff I'm sure you know. And it's like, I don't know about the miracle. I mean, like, it seems like God does what he wants.
It's different for men in this situation. There's a lot of pressure from women, other women to women, about mommyhood.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, mommy.
Sure.
And, you know, I'm just going to say it. Transparency. I don't care.
Sure.
I think even now that my wife is a mother, like, people still are having a hard time remembering that she's a mom now.
Oh, okay.
So when there's like mommy groups and mommy dates.
Oh, she's not necessarily invited or something like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's still like, oh, everyone's like, oh, yeah, she's a mom now. Oh, yeah, you know, duh.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so we thought that kind of pressure was going to be alleviated. And I think it's still, I mean, it's still new to us, right? And so I never got that pressure from you guys. It wasn't like, it wasn't like, oh, you know, when are you going to be a dad, Gabe?
You should have.
You
I
know.
sent you all those text
You
messages and
did.
emails.
I mean, you were harassing.
I
them.
was, yeah.
Like, I'm surprised we're friends.
I mean, it was a rough couple of years, I can say that.
You were like, every day you were like, when are you going to have a kid?
Yeah, I don't even know what came over me. I was just like, that is just some kind of some compulsion that I needed to follow.
Well, that was when you were still figuring it out.
That's when I was still figuring it out.
Yeah.
That's when I was still a work in progress then, you know.
You're completed now.
I am. The space bar, the progress bar is at 100%. The program is running smoothly. Saintly, yeah. I mean, the person has got all the patches and the downloads. I'm ready to rock and roll.
But I think, so anyways, I just think there's like a lot of pressure sometimes, like, and again, that I believe I put on myself, but I mean, it's also a thing. It's like, there's a lot of intellectuals in our church.
Yeah.
And they're like, have you learned the Philokalia today?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. Like, and, oh, well, you can't quote all the elders? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I like coming to church.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, what about, you know, it's just like, I'm just not that guy. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
feely guy. Like, I'm
Feely-
like, feely.
I mean, I have talked about this at length, but so I won't belabor this point. I think I even talked about it last week, but I'm a drug and alcohol addiction counselor, and one of my brother died of an opiate overdose, so I thought opiates were going to be the people I wanted to work with.
Sure.
Not to mention that I went through an opiate thing myself. But no, it's actually meth heads. People who formerly use a lot of meth because they don't suffer from intellectualism. Because intellectualism is, and I will absolutely die on this hill, I don't care, intellectualism is a disease. It's a disorder. And the problem with it is that everything is passing through your mind. And the mind, I'm not going to talk too much more about that, but
I actually am super fascinated by it, but I mean, I see what
read
you're...
Saint Nikolai Velimirovich. He is constantly tearing down academia. He is constantly ridiculing intellectualism. Like, he's outright, like, have you read Prayers by the Lake?
No, Stuart really wants me.
It's fantastic.
That book changed Stuart's life. So
and that's a really good story. I mean,
it is.
If he comes on, then he should absolutely.
We should have Stuart on.
Yeah, but like, he's constantly like, oh, whoa, like he's like outright talking smack to people who think they're super smart. Like he's like, yeah, let's see how far that gets. Like, let's see how far like your intellect goes on like the day of judgment. You know, like he's like, your ideas are sand that will be swept away in a heartbeat. Like he, like.
But sorry to interrupt you. Why are we then? Why is every convert, every person I know that comes into the church, why are we like that then?
I would posit as a layman who really doesn't have much like. The only thing I can speak from here is my experience is that for men, I think it maybe is a bit of misguided zealotry.
Sure.
There's a misguided energy about it, and I used to call that being hyperdox. Now, I recently that pointed out to me that like that doesn't necessarily mean the thing that I thought it meant. I thought it meant what I picture is the person who's been in the church a year and a half and is quoting the Philokalia, who's quoting, you know, and not that that's wrong, but what are you doing reading the Philokalia?
Seriously.
Like, what are you doing reading, like, this stuff is above you? You know, like, what do you do? I can't think of another book off the top of my head. I think I've heard it said, if you're reading, like, the writings of St. Maximus the Confessor or something like that, unless there's, like, a blessing. You know, if there's a blessing and it's up to everyone's strength, then maybe you are actually called to read that stuff. But I beat his drum all the time, but, like, I don't know if you listen to much Priest Monk Cosmos.
I do.
Yeah, he is all about that. That dude cannot remember like Bible stories. He's like, I think Christ like went up. He's like, I can't remember.
Oh my God, that's me.
Yeah. So, but like that man knows exactly how to speak about everyday issues. Like, so there's a beautiful thing that takes place when a person is able to use their mind and their heart. And I definitely know a couple people like that, where they use their mind in a way that it's properly used. You know, it's not a servant. I mean, it's not a master. It's a servant, you know? And so they're able to like hone their intellect in a way that it becomes actually useful. But a lot of the times what it can come across is like a person who would call the bishop because someone did like a prostration on a Sunday. You know what I mean? Just like misguided zealotry, you know, just like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, what is that person doing? You know, like, and they're going around like correcting other people and stuff like that, which, you know, there's a time and a place for that, but like, it's not as often as I think. I can say that. It's not as often as I think, to go along and tell someone, hey, according to like the church, like, you're not really supposed to be doing that. You know, like, there's a time and a place for that, and certainly we have nuns to correct. You know, we have nuns to scold people lovingly, and we have a priest who that's their job, and we have some more zealous members of like our parish that will do that. Say, you know, but a lot of the times, like I know what you're talking about, and like it's kind of its own form of whackness, and like it's like. People who talk a big talk and then they get off stage and they're cussing out the person who accidentally door dinged their car or something like that. So, yeah.
One of the things, you know, because we can talk about this stuff, and I feel sometimes we have the tendency to, you know, say like if a Protestant is listening to this right now, they're like, what in the blue blazes are they talking about? So I was thinking about this question today. Maybe it's a really super loaded question, but as far as parenting goes, what are the differences in your mind between an Orthodox parent and a Protestant parent? Or a whatever you want to say, non-denominational. Like, how is our... Like, I mean, we don't have to go way deep because it's a pretty intense. And I was thinking about this today. It's a pretty intense like thing to think about. But what is the difference? Because me and you are sitting here saying, you said that there's going to be a jewel in your wife's crown. You said that this St. Paisios said that people's souls are like or the children's souls are like carbon paper, stuff like that. Are we that much different from Protestant parents?
I would say, in my opinion.
Do you like how I did that, by the way? I just like.
Yeah, no, it's very much like expand on that. Expand on that.
Motivational interviewing.
Yeah, exactly. So again, just as a layperson, just
right
from the limited experience I have, one of the things that, and I think I'm believing in using this term correctly, but like, is like if you're an Orthodox person, well, okay, so the big one would be, because there's a lot here, and I want to keep it brief.
Sure.
Because like I'm not like a clergy member,
right.
So I can't really speak on this stuff too much. I can just talk about like my own experience.
Right. That's what I'm asking for. Just the application.
The applications is that obviously we have sacraments. We have 7 sacraments. So like, and kids are going to be participating in like, I can't think of the number off the top, but like at least like 3 or 4 of them. Like I mean, so that right away is a huge difference, because that's the incarnational reality of the Orthodox Church, is that like Protestantism might be more of a game of, not a game, I'm sorry. It's more of like it's an intellectual exercise. Like faith is felt and experienced and stuff like that within the Protestant Church. Sure, like of course there is, there's interactions with God, sure, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you are a participating member of the Orthodox Church and certainly raising your children in a certain way, you develop what's called, and I think I'm using this term correctly, is a phronema. It's like a mindset. Right. The mindset of the church. It's like you kind of just instinctively start thinking like a member of the church. So like there's certain things that you'd be like, yeah, I don't know why that's incorrect, but that's incorrect. Like I know that like if somebody were to say something to me and like, there's just like feelings you start to get like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. And I've experienced that to a degree. It's discernment. I've experienced that to a degree with Protestants where, they can just kind of instinctively understand like something is not a good idea.
Right.
Like, especially like my boss's boss, the head of the organization that I work for. She's very much like that. But your phronema, like your mindset is going to be very, very different from a Protestant, in the sense that like, okay, a Protestant would say like, well, I'm teaching my kids to love Christ. Well, how do you do that? Right. Oh, we pray in the morning, like, and sure. I'm just speaking for Protestant
right.
Joe here. Like,
right.
This is not a personal attack on anyone, like, this is not an attack on anyone's religious beliefs or anything like that. That'll be for another time.
Yes. But, that's episode 3.
That's episode 3. Here's what you're doing wrong. But at this time, like, you as a parent, yeah, I mean, there's just like almost every aspect of your life, more or less, if you're doing it correctly. I mean, it is. Every area of your life should be affected by orthodoxy, by Christ. Right. And then this being a huge one, because, my foundation is not one of like an intellectual understanding of God or of faith. My foundation is based on like, in fact, that stuff can really hinder me. My understanding is based on like, is the real nitty gritty. It's like I have to pray because I have to be ready. I can't take a night off of prayer, because if that's the night I take off from prayer, that's going to be the night that my son wakes up and refuses to go back to sleep. And not that that's a punishment for my lack of prayer, but I won't be ready to handle that. I will flip out on him.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing today. Not about, but it's something very similar.
Yeah. So a Protestant, again, it tends to be a little bit more of like, and how you would respond to your child's suffering. Like that would be like a big thing, because like there's this problem where we don't want our kids to suffer. So, especially in the West, we're just like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see my kids suffer. Whereas we stand back and let that happen. Like, I'm not like leaving my kid outside and like, it's for your salvation. Right. Like the sun beating down on me. Yeah. But no, like, if another child from the parish is mean to my child, I don't jump in like right away and make sure everybody's okay. Yeah, I will do that if the situation warrants it. But there's times where like, no, my daughter's feelings just have to be hurt. You know, my son's feelings have to be hurt. St. Theophan the Recluse talks about keeping a distance between your child and the pleasures of... That would be how I would sum it up. To an Orthodox person, I talked about this with a brother from the church not too long ago. Like cradle-baptized children experience reality differently. Where a kid playing...
You continue. I'm going to go let my cat out.
Where a non-baptized kid might have no problem playing video games for like 6 hours straight, you know?
Right.
There's no huge emotional, spiritual backlash from that. But an Orthodox kid would. Like, an Orthodox kid would experience that differently.
Pause that thought real quick. Would you say that then, so kind of fine-tune that a little bit, would it be like perhaps, and we're not saying all, but perhaps a Protestant parent would be like, here, play this Bible game for 6 hours and that's okay?
Sure. I mean, depending on the Protestant parent, but the thing is like that child's not going to be affected by it the same way that a Protestant child would, or an Orthodox child would be affected by it. And secondly, the Protestant, depending on their faith, depending on where things are at, might not see any problem with a child playing a video game for 6 hours, where an Orthodox parent would be like, no, it is my job to keep you kind of at arm's length, more or less, from like the pleasures of this world. Like the difference is astronomical. It can be.
So actually a really good point then, an illustrating point to the difference in parenting styles would be, when you told me that quote from St. Paisios next week, don't think that everything I did regarding her this week wasn't affected by the words of that saint. Now, when a Protestant person doesn't have that, those words...
It's different.
So that's what just popped into my head.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, as I discussed last week, just very briefly, there is an undeniable connection between the icons and the saints and our children.
Yes, without a doubt. Yeah.
The children, just think of it from a visual. If there was nothing to the icon, it's just paint and wood, right? Isn't that right? If it was just paint and wood, the children are seeing the embodiment of Christ.
Sure. Yeah.
Before them, because we're telling them these are people that are holy. These are people that are have obtained what we are trying to obtain.
Sure.
Just that connection alone can make them feel like they're not alone.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So when they look around in their simple mind, and again, I'm not a child, but I would imagine I would have loved to have had that when I was a kid, because they would be like my friends.
Sure, absolutely.
Because
Saint Matrona played with them like dolls. She played with little icons like dolls. Yeah,
and that is, I mean, that is such a key piece to them feeling like comfort when the parents can't provide them comfort. It's like when they've been told this saint prays for you, or this, this. Look, there they are. And they can kids are very visual. They can see that, St. Barbara for my daughters, right? I take my daughter to St. Barbara every day and say, look, there she is, And there's always like, it's just this connection. And then I don't know. I know a lot of beautiful, lovely Protestant people that raise their children super well, in my estimation, but who am I? Woe is me.
Yeah.
I am but a worm.
I'm a worm.
I am but a worm underneath your cloven hoof.
Yeah.
But there, and that was just something I was thinking about. I was like, maybe Andrew. I mean, and that was great. Like, I totally agree with what you were saying. Like, it's just an interesting thought to have. Is like, we do raise our children differently based on our faith, at least somewhat differently.
Well, yeah. I mean, every aspect will be touched by Christ, and it'll be touched differently for an Orthodox kid. Like, the experience of life will be a different experience for an Orthodox child. I experience life differently because I am an Orthodox Christian. I, we're taught vigilance. We're taught the importance of suffering. We're taught, seeking Christ in all things, and not just in like a nice flowery way, like there's a rainbow, that kind of thing. Although that's there too, but I mean, like the mother of our church, Mother Elizabeth from our church has talked about kids running and playing, like just being rambunctious, and then they see an icon, like an icon's there, and they stop and they like all kiss it, and then they run back to like. There's like a reverence, to it that like, that kids instinctively, I would say instinctively have. Father talks about how the soul needs to be conditioned to love things of the church. Like we need to like encourage that and condition it, but at the same time there is like this response that people have towards icons that it's very intended. It's very intentional. Like one of my favorite things that Father ever said is like, and I'm sure he's quoting a saint here, but like when you look at an icon of Christ, everybody's like interpretation of who Christ is, Christ is like the hippie, like lover, or like, Christ is the ultra militant fascist, like he's like in favor of like whatever, like not Christ agenda you want to name and label to Christ. Like those narratives cease when you look at an icon of Christ, because you're seeing God. And like those things that you can like easily like attach to Christ and be like, blah blah blah, Christ like doesn't care if you smoke pot. Christ doesn't care like if dudes are marrying dudes or whatever. Like Christ doesn't care about like abortion or any of that kind of stuff. You look at an icon and like that stuff just stops. Like it just stops. So that incarnational reality, the like the very realness of the faith, the things you can touch and look and smell and see, like that is going to change your life in every aspect. So like not only does it change me as a father, but it changes my children, for better and for worse, according to me. It's all for God's glory, but life is going to be harder for my children than it would be for their Protestant, friends. It's going to be harder. There's going to be more suffering. Things are going to be more difficult.
But I think it's important that a lot of Orthodox people get caught up in this, and I think it's wrong. And I could be wrong, so consult your priest. I could be wrong. But I think a lot of Orthodox people, and we have to be careful about this with our children, is yes, Orthodoxy teaches us about suffering, but a lot of us get wrapped up in the suffering and forget about the joy.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
Because I used to, when we were just talking, when you were talking, I was thinking about like how I used to be jealous of Protestants because I'm like, man, they're into it.
Yeah.
They like my friend Micah who cuts my hair. He loves God. And I'm like, why can't I do that? And the reason why I'm saying why can't I do that is because partially because of the remembrance of suffering, but we do rejoice. It's just not in maybe that typical way of like, Jesus is my homeboy. Like, what do you want from me?
I'll drink a beer with Jesus.
Jesus, loves a party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But like, we have to remember that there is, with the suffering, there is great joy.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
And the perfect example of that is Pascha.
Oh.
Perfect example.
Absolutely.
Pascha is literally both joy and sorrow and suffering all mashed up into one beautiful celebration.
Celebration burrito. You just have all those ingredients thrown in there and it's wrapped up.
And like you said, like, the tangible things, like I know a lot of Protestant people believe what we do is idol worship and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to get into that. We will get into it when on episode 3 when we say this is what you're doing wrong.
This is anathema.
But I think like just from a senses perspective, when I first walked into an Orthodox church after I went to like 2 Catholic masses when I was a kid. I went to a vineyard. I was about to say grapevine. I went to a vineyard church with one of my dear friends, Rick, who actually is responsible partially for my conversion. And so I didn't have much churching, but when I walked into that church with my wife, I was like, I remember thinking, if heaven is even remotely like this, sign me up.
Yeah, for real.
Because it was beautiful, it smelled good, and there was holy people everywhere. I didn't know what they were, but there was holy people everywhere, and I was like, this is probably a little bit of what heaven looks like. Yeah. I'm good with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's I again, having no experience, I'm like, that's a pretty powerful experience. The people that we've witnessed, that Father's witnessed, that have come into the church and just cried, having never been in an Orthodox church before, because they see an icon of Saint Moses the Black.
Sure.
Or I didn't know there was black,
Yeah, I didn't know there was black people. Just in general.
I mean, that actually happened to a guy who came into our church, saw an icon of St. Moses the Black, and began to cry. Yeah. Because he was like, oh my gosh, there's black saints. Yeah. This isn't just a white
man's religion.
A whitewashed religion. Or seeing an icon of Christ and being like, oh, he doesn't look like what I've seen kind of in passing throughout my entire life of who's the most white Jesus I've ever seen? Is that the name of the episode?
The whitest Jesus. Maybe, could be. It could be.
I think it's probably Mormons. Like, that Jesus is super white. I mean, he's like you.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. All right. That's fair. I am pretty white.
I am super white too, but
I lean into that. I think I'm okay. I'm an okay white person. I like being white. Yeah. It's whatever.
We're getting canceled. That's it. Yeah. Thank you for watching the Pare-dox podcast. We said we liked the color of our skin. We're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there's so many more tangible things about the Orthodox Church that really attract people, bringing it back to parenting, bringing it back to kids. Kids are attracted to that stuff.
Ultimately, the church is like the source of the most joy you can get, because like right now, the way that I experience that joy is from a complete because like nothing tastes sweeter than the water, when you're like haven't had water for like 3 days. 2 of like the most joyful days I can remember in the last year were right after times of like immense suffering, immense. And like, that's what made those days so special. Like, I'll never forget, right after this last Lent, which was particularly intense. It was a particularly intense Lent. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of sickness. Like my 4-year-old daughter's finger got smashed in a car door, and it almost got ripped off. And like, it was just like a absolutely brutal time, and it was like unrelenting for like 2 to 3 weeks. Like, every day I'd wake up and
something new.
It was like
some new tragedy.
demons would be like jumping on the bed, be like, what's up? We've been up for the last half hour. Like, we're already ready to go. So like, by the time I'm like eating breakfast, like, it's already been kind of an intense day. But the point is that, those who endure to the end, because we made it to Lent, to Pascha, and we got through, and the next day I was supposed to go down for jury duty. So I had that day off work, and I went down, and it is a good story.
Okay.
I mean, it's not really a good story, but it does illustrate a point. I went down there, and I had the day off work. I already told them, look, I'm going to be at jury duty all day long, and so I can't come into work. And I showed up, and they're like, yeah, we don't need you, and you get like a 4-year exception because you showed up. So you're not going to get called again for 4 years. So I just walked around downtown Kansas City for like 2 hours, and like there's a place here in downtown Kansas City that has like a park on top of a building. So you can like go to the building and then climb all the way, go all the way to the 4th floor, and then you're kind of like in the heart of downtown Kansas City.
You're right.
For what it is, there's like the 5 or 6 tall buildings or whatever. Right. But it's still kind of neat to be up there. And I remember like I brought comic books and everything. I was going to sit up there and read, but I ended up just like leaning over the edge and watching cars like drive and stuff for like 45 minutes. Wow. And like, that's not like me. Like, I don't do stuff like that. Like, I don't have a very long attention span. But that's like where I was at, where like that was such a relief. Mm-hmm. And like, of course, like the possible joy and everything like that was there with me. But like that was such a relief because we just come out of this time of like intense hardship.
Right.
And not the most intense hardship,
right.
but it was difficult. And like, that's why the joy that the church can provide is like so unique, because not many people outside the church, at least not the people I know, and certainly not if you're really American and a millennial, you're not going to suffer for that long before going and trying to find relief somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's going to be pot or porn or video games or TikTok or a TV show or something. Like, you have one bad day at work that's slightly frustrating, and you know you're quote unquote practicing self-care, quote unquote, and like just eating like a whole Pizza Hut pizza and binge watching The Office, and that's like self-care. Like,
yeah.
So it, you know, and I do mean offense by that. Like, if you are offended by that, I'm sorry, but that's not self-care. That's nothing.
No, yeah.
And it's not like I'm above that. I certainly do stuff like that, but I recognize like there is no justification for that. Like, no, I am being slothful, and I am being lazy, and I'm being gluttonous. Like, that's just the truth of it. Like, so that's all there is to it. So,
and I think I think confession is a big part of the piece that makes Orthodoxy so different in a lot of different aspects than Protestantism is because we have confession. Yeah. Like you were talking about the joy after the storm or after the hardships.
Sure.
And when we were adopting Eloise, I hadn't gone to church in, I want to say 6 weeks.
Yeah, like a month and a half.
Easy.
Something like that. Yeah.
Easy.
You guys were in Florida for
Suffering.
a while. Yeah.
Suffering, dude. Suffering. And when I did that confession with Father, after those 6 weeks, I cried harder than I've cried in years.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I was thinking about this too. I wouldn't have cried that hard or that much had confession not happened. If I didn't have confession in my life, those emotions they would spill out maybe a little bit. I'd watch a commercial about a dog or something, and I'd cry or something, like because I'm a baby.
Sure.
But it would just kind of leak out, but that spiritual oppression, that confinement, never gets that like release.
Oh yeah.
And real quick story, I was a drug and alcohol counselor at one time as well.
Sure.
And I was walking a patient out, and she was asking me about Orthodoxy because I had icons in my office. And I remember it was a Saturday because I saw her on a Saturday. I came in and I met with her because she needed to have, it was a methadone clinic. Anyways.
Sure.
And I was walking her out, and she was like, so I was talking about Orthodoxy, and then she was like, so do you go like confession? Is it kind of like Catholics? And I was like, yeah. I was like, we go to confession, and we believe you should probably do it as often as you can.
Sure.
Before you take communion, that kind of stuff. And then she's like, so what is confession? And I was like, well, you just kind of like, I can tell my priest things that I can tell nobody else.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's almost like he acts as the intermediary between you and Christ.
Sure.
And then she looks at me, it was like what we call a doorknob comment. She looks at me and she goes, doesn't everybody need that?
Ugh. Amen.
You know, and I still remember, and her name was Christy. I still remember it to this day. And it was just such a matter-of-fact comment. And she has no idea how profound that was for me, because she was like, wow, doesn't everybody need that?
Yeah.
And I was like,
I would agree. Yeah.
I was like, bingo.
Absolutely.
And that's something I would have never found in any other church but the Orthodox Church.
The sacraments are all awesome.
Yes.
But confession is definitely like, if someone put a gun to my head, aside from the par excellence, which is the Eucharist,
yes,
I would say confession is my favorite sacrament.
Yes.
Because I love unction. Like,
me too.
You know, of course, like marriage is awesome, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on. But there are very few things that give me the relief that confession does. Like, sometimes I could walk away from confession skipping. Like, not all the time.
Right.
And sometimes I bring a whack
sometimes
energy.
It's painful.
Well, yeah, and like, it is painful, but like, Yeah, it is. It's painful and it's difficult, and a lot of times I'm like, I'm not sure I'm doing this correctly. I'm not sure I should be confessing this.
Right.
Like, I feel like, and then like I do a confession, and then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I forgot this thing.
Me too. I
But,
always
like,
do that. I
yeah.
always do that.
But like, I don't get the relief that I do from many other things. In fact, some of that other stuff can sometimes make my life a little bit harder, which is okay. You know, glory to God. That's okay. But confession is the one that I'm like,
Dude.
yeah. And like when something's wrong, and I can tell when it's been a couple of weeks when I've done one because things are just harder. I'm starting to like listen a little bit more to the voices that don't make sense. I'm starting to kind of like creep back into old territory and stuff like that. So confession is like, you know, it usually gives me a ton of relief. It just is like usually like, okay, I don't have to worry about that thing so much anymore, you know, like, unless I need to, and like, man, I went through this phase where like, I was confessing stuff that I did before my baptism.
Oh, dude.
And that was really, really nice. Like, that was really nice because like, baptism works. That's not the problem. The sacrament works. Like, baptism is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. But like, there are things that like I'm not ready. It's me that I was like not ready to heal from yet. So,
right,
like,
or that you may have not even been aware of.
Sure, 100%.
Because this whole thing, like we talked about last week, is a process. Like, you don't know nothing until you're years and years and years and years in.
It takes a long time for the Christian to set in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're digging all and through consistent confession, participation of the sacraments,
you will change.
You will
change. Yeah, you will. It's not like a question of if; it's a question of you will. And I've heard it said that it's blasphemy to think otherwise, because like it's like Christ doesn't know how to do his job. You know, like it's like
I just had the light bulb moment where, like when I was just talking about it, I was like, you said you will. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. No, you will. Yeah.
And it uproots all that gunk.
Oh, yeah.
And it may be a lifetime process of the gunk.
Sure.
And that's fine.
Yeah. And like, you know,
it's purification.
It's purification. I remember like with this last.
I jump across the table. We figured it out.
Got it.
Shut it down.
That was the podcast. But with this last daughter, my little Dorothy Matrona, there was complications. I'm not really going to get into it, but like it, just for time, and I've been talking a lot. So,
welcome to the podcast.
I mean, yeah, for real. But I remember I was talking with Father because I was praying really intensely because it was a C-section. We've never had a C-section before. Sure. And there's complications with Dorothy, little Matrona, and she's fine. But like now she's fine. You know, there will be problems later on, like without a doubt, like because of her who her saint is. But she will have her problems later on. But for right now, she's wonderful. She's pink. She's lovely. We love her. She has no immediate health concerns or anything like that. Right. We love her. But I remember sitting there praying, and I was praying really intently, and because my wife had been taken away to surgery, which is a very intensely not cool experience of them like wheeling her out and be like, we'll be back in a half hour to come get you so that you can be in the room with her when she's having the surgery or whatever. I was sitting there praying, and it really hit me that it was like, and I talked about this later with Father, which is why I'm okay about talking about it, because he kind of confirmed it. At least I remember that he confirmed it. But it was like, I was saying the Jesus prayer, and I was like,
what is the Jesus prayer for those that don't know?
So yeah, it's St. Paul commands us to pray without ceasing. And so a way of doing that, rather than trying to keep up like a conversation or something like that all the time, or to constantly like ask God for stuff, is just to say, Lord Jesus Christ, and God have mercy on me, a sinner, kind of over and over, and staying present in it and trying to concentrate on the words and stuff like that. And I remember I was sitting there doing it, and it was weird because I wasn't like looking at my phone or anything, which is what I normally would have been doing. But since the situation was desperate, I was, scared. I was praying. I wasn't like looking at YouTube shorts or whatever. And I remember like getting this really strong, like, not like feeling, but it was like this like kind of like a light bulb thing. It's like, it's not me that is getting me closer to God right now. it's like it's the tool I'm using, which is the Jesus prayer. I'm not really bringing anything to this. It's almost like if you needed to like get somewhere, but you were in such bad shape, all you could really kind of do is like grab onto the back of like a car as it drove along and like just hold on. Like you can't really do anything. And it's not your strength that's moving you, it's the car's strength. And you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like the only thing I could really do was just be dragged along.
Sure.
And the Jesus prayer was the thing that was dragging me. Like my strength was not accomplishing anything. It was the strength. It was the strength and the legitimacy and the holiness of that prayer that was getting me through it. I had nothing really to do with it, other than my cooperation with saying the prayer, rather than getting on YouTube Shorts,
numbing out
or watching whatever was going to be on hospital TV.
Which is why they have a TV there.
Which is why they have a TV there, is to numb you, and so that you don't
you forget about what's going on.
You forget about your suffering. So that same spirit can really be applied. It takes cooperation, sure, and it takes you like having to be able to be receptive and to be willing to change. But the sacraments are going to change you. Like either, if you take them properly to the extent that you can, or either warp you in a way because you're not receiving them correctly, to the degree, double check me on that. But I kind of imagine that, like, if you're in a compromised position in your faith and you take a sacrament and your conscience is pinged because you might believe something kind of whack about God, you're going to either repent or double down. Mm-hmm. And if you double down, it doesn't even have to necessarily be like a quote unquote heresy. Like you don't even have to believe that like there's 5 people in the Trinity or something like that. It could be something as simple as like, well, I don't really need God to be involved in my work. Right. There's like a separation there.
Right.
Like church is church, work is work.
That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want God to get involved in my life in that way because I still have parts of my life that are not for Him.
Right. I can control this part.
I can control. I did my little thing with God, and then I'm gonna go about my day. And so, like, if your conscience is pinged by that, if you're being shown that like it's not entirely correct, and actually you're kind of losing out on something by not incorporating God more into your life, like in that aspect, you either change or you double down. In that, like, I think to the certain extent, the sacraments will probably, if you continue to partake and not really change that kind of thing, I kind of help think maybe like the doubling down, and kind of, who was it? Someone said, I can't remember, but it's like when you ignore your conscience, it does go away. Like you eventually do like harden your conscience.
Yes.
It doesn't stop punishing you.
Right.
You just kind of like accept that like this is just a part of life. Like I just always kind of feel weird about this thing instead of just changing it, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. I'm really tired.
So that's actually what I was going to say. It's so weird that you mentioned the work thing, is because I've always strived and aspired. I always try to remember, okay, before you have any interactions with clients, before you do anything, have God go before you.
Sure.
Pray to God before that. And I've never done it until this week. Can you believe that? I mean, sporadically here and there, of course.
Sure.
But like this week, I have started making a conscious effort, even before I start any work that day, because I would focus on my prayers for my family and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of move on and be like, now it's work time.
Sure.
I used to do the separation thing.
Yeah.
But in the back of my head, it kept saying like, dude, remember, like, before you feed your daughter this bottle, bless this bottle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like little stuff like that where I'm like, well, I'm not in my prayer.
Yeah.
But I started doing that, and it's interesting. Like, I actually started door knocking this week because I'm really broke.
Sure.
So I was,
You're one of those guys that's like, are you interested in selling your house?
No, I would go to I have my business card and a flyer, and I would just go to people's, I'd knock, and then I would just say, hey, I'm a local real estate agent. If you or anybody needs help, I'm here for you. See you later.
Okay.
Real quick, to the point. I don't like cheesy, like, hey, a buyer. I have a buyer in the box right now.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. So But before that's nerve wracking to go to people's doors.
Yeah.
For me, at least, I mean, I'm a pretty outgoing guy, but
Sure.
so I sat in my truck and I was like, Lord, I was like, help me to have fruitful conversations with these people.
Sure.
Give me courage to go to these doors and all this kind of stuff. And I felt good about that because I finally did what I've been trying to do for years.
Sure.
And again, it's all of it.
It has to be.
All of it.
It has to be, and it has to be like Christ is worth it, but I mean, he demands everything. And it's not like I'm doing that.
No.
It's not like I'm sitting here like I obviously have whole parts of my life that are still very worldly.
Yeah.
But even sometimes when I like watch a TV show or something like that, or watch a movie, if I'm doing okay, I actually heard this in AA a long time ago, and so I kind of incorporated it into my program a little bit. That's like, God, I'm about to watch this movie. If you could please take care of everything while I'm watching it. Something like that. Like, please watch over me and protect me while I'm doing this thing.
Right.
And like, I found my most profitable prayer is like, comes from a place of sincerity like that, of like, not trying to act like God doesn't understand that like I don't feel particularly spiritual right now. And like I don't particularly feel like doing these sets of prayers or something like that. So I'm just like, it's like, God, help me to pray to you.
Right. I did that the other day.
Yeah. It's like, help me.
Help my unbelief. That's what I always say.
Help my unbelief is a fantastic
That's
one.
what I always say. Hey, God, me, man. I don't say this, but in my mind, I'm like, please, God, just help my unbelief. I'm just such a miserable.
I know.
I'm a worm.
I know.
God.
I am a worm.
That's the name of the episode.
Yeah, I'm a worm. Yeah. I think that's a good one, actually.
Yeah, no, that's the name of it.
And I think that it's kind of silly, and I think it's definitely like disingenuous to God to think that he doesn't know exactly where you are.
Right.
And not even in like, hey brother, it's okay, Jesus understands. It's like, no, it's like in a real way of like, no, I can actually be like really bluntly honest with this dude, with God, and I can honestly just be like, look, I don't like this person. I struggle with this person really, really hard. That like, please help me to understand, like, is this a me thing? Is this a them thing? Is this something, is this like a hard line no that I need to take on something? Is there something I need to do here? Please let me know what it is. And the really unfortunate part of it is sometimes is he absolutely answers that prayer. Like he will absolutely answer that prayer. And it's like, it's not always pleasant. No. And like, a couple weeks ago, like I was talking with Father about the fact that like I'm trying to sleep less because I find I function better on like 5 to 7 hours of sleep. If I get anything over that, sometimes I'm really sloggy the next day. Sure. I actually need a nap more when I sleep more than 8 hours. Me too. When I need less.
Me too.
I was talking to Father about that, and I was like, yeah, I've been praying to St. John of San Francisco to see if I can get some like energy to help stay awake. He's like, I don't want to do that. Suddenly, like, he's like, you'll find your circumstances have changed where suddenly you're just not able to sleep as much anymore. Like maybe like you start getting insomnia, like maybe like your kid starts getting insomnia. So then the prayers must have been answered. Oh no, and then Father said, God lets those who he loves rests. Like God gives those he loves rest. So like he's like basically saying, don't worry so much about not sleeping as much. Like at least for aesthetic purposes, like asceticism. Right. But God must have got tired of my crap or something because now my son is like all over the place with his sleep schedule, and I'm finding myself having to function with 3 to 4 hours of sleep. Like tonight I'm running on like 3.5 or something like that. And it's like, at that point, your cross is so evident physically with what's going on with you. It's like, how are you going to bear it? Like, are you going to be real with God and be like, this is obviously a thing. This is obviously an experience. This is obviously something I'm going through. Please help me to do it. Or you're going to act like it's not really bothering you, you know, and just kind of move on with your life. So
I think that's a good stopping point.
I think I probably should have stopped about 20 minutes ago. But
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It is we are redubbing it the Andrew Funk Experience.
I guess.
I am but your backing band.
Yeah, no, I don't want it to. We got to figure out a way for me to stop talking as much.
Oh, well, actually, what you say is really good. So that's why if it wasn't, I would interrupt you. I'd be like,
Yeah.
listen, dude.
Please shut me down. Please shut me down.
I'd make this sound like...
I really gotta see what Father thinks about this. He's like, yo, you need to dial it back.
What do you think about this, Father?
Yeah.
Well, what I do think is that you should comment below, down below in the comments, hit like and subscribe, tell people about the podcast if you like it. If you don't, well then, beat it.
Go screw. Oh. No, that's not a cuss. I don't think that's a cuss.
No. We didn't add any money. Well, I think I owe like 50 cents for the two dads one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's definitely. I'd even go as far as 75 cents.
All right, well I'll just put a solid $1. There'll be I owe what, $3 now?
$3.
You need to really step it up here, brother.
About cussing?
Yeah.
I'll try. I'll try my hardest.
You know what?
Hey, check it out. Piss.
You did say laugh at yourself till we piss or laugh until we piss ourselves last week.
Bastard.
Ooh.
There you go.
Poop stinks.
Poop smells like poop.
By the way, I did see real quick. You should watch. I'll send it to you later. There is a video of a coyote stealing a baby in California, most likely.
Wow, did the baby make it?
I don't know. I just saw see this video of coyote. Do you want to watch it real quick?
Not really. No, I'm not in the place to handle that.
Okay.
Because I don't know what happened to the
I don't
baby.
know either. Yeah. It was on one of the news feeds and.
Oh, okay.
So I'll
check it out.
I think
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
but I'd
shoot that coyote right.
Oh,
in his
without a
stupid
doubt.
face.
No, I wouldn't shoot him. I would hunt him down with a knife between my teeth, and I would jump on him and
Rambo
slowly
status, just
Yeah, absolutely. I would just be like, yeah, you tell your friend. No, what I would do is I'd cut off one of its paws and release it back into the wild. And you tell your friends to stay away from my, because I did watch a video today that actually disturbed me, and I was just like, I can't do another one of those today. It was a clip from a movie. It was super disturbing. I was like, I can't do another one. So
I started watching that movie Stutz.
I've never even heard of it.
Jonah Hill made a documentary about his therapist. And he thought that this therapist was such a life-changing therapist that these people, the tools that he gives people need to be broadcast.
Sure.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but I was watching it. I don't know if anything's wrong with me, but I was watching it and I was like,
it could be discernment, bro. I mean, it could be
I was like, this. Yeah, I was like, this guy's he's talking about God, but he's not, and it's annoying me.
Yeah.
He's like the power of the universe, the creator. What he was, and I was.
I mean, that's even being charitable, because you don't know that he is actually even talking about God. I used to kind of accept a lot of that stuff. It's like when you start when you won't. Here it is, and this is a great place to end. When you won't name the Trinity, that's when I'm like.
We're not talking about the same thing.
We're not talking about the same thing anymore.
Right.
And that's even a differences between Protestants and Christianity is this is one of Father Turbo's sayings. So forgive me, Father. But it's if a Protestant's why do you pray to saints? I'm like, okay, we don't believe in the same God anymore, homie. It's right there. That is a big part of God. It's the communion. It's the kingdom of God. It's the participants. It's the people we look to. If you're not doing that, we don't believe in the same God. You know, just kind of end of statement, period. Let's talk about it, but that's the factual statement.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. You might not even be wrong in the sense that, you're worshiping a God, but we're not worshiping the same God.
Right. I mean, literally, we're not.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's it's improper worship. It's an improper perception of God, and that is the devil has done more with less. So
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And on that note, we appreciate all of you guys watching the Pare-dox podcast right here on YouTube. We'll put it up on other platforms when I feel like it.
We should talk about fun 80s movies next week, so that maybe I don't try and act like I'm some kind of theologian.
You're not.
I'm not.
Hey, do you want a reality check? You're not.
Hey, I'm in that reality check, but I can say that Big is a great movie. So
no, it's not, and I'll tell you why.
No, save it for next week.
Okay.
Save it for next week.
Okay, because there's some parts of that movie that are downright.
There's some disturbing implications.
There's some disturbing implications in that movie.
That woman has sex with a boy, basically,
knowingly.
Knowingly, yeah, I know. And then she sees him turn back at the end. And then like what? She just goes back to work. Like she just
Yes.
goes and gets like a
Were
Subway
they at
sandwich
an
or
ad
something?
agency? Everyone's at an ad agency in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that's fair.
I work in advertising.
I'm in advertising.
I'm in advertising.
Oh,
Anyways, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching the podcast. We will see you next week right here, and maybe we'll go live in the near future. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. I'm Gabe. That's Andrew. Bye-bye.